Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, wow. What an epic conclusion this was to the J.C. Jackson narrative for the Los Angeles Chargers. Oh, I'm so glad I didn't buy his jersey, man. That turned out to be an absolute disaster, dudes. And I'm not going to lie, like last season, the season prior, like I was so excited to bring in number 27. There were dreams of this man stepping into the Jalen Ramsey role for the Chargers and giving ourselves at least a step closer to what made Brandon Staley's defense with the Los Angeles Rams in 2020 so spectacular. Unfortunately for the Chargers, that just never worked out. Breaking news, Chargers are going to be swapping 2025 6th and 7th rounders to trade J.C. Jackson away back to the New England Patriots. Y'all, Bill Belichick fleeced us. Bill Belichick fleeced us, man. He sends this dude back over to the Chargers, gets a fat contract, says heal up from that injury. Go get that surgery we didn't want to get while you were here with the Patriots. Grab that paycheck, come back. We'll grab you for a late round pick later on. It's not the first time this has happened. Maybe not the last for Bill Belichick, but this is one that certainly does bring its share of concerns for the Chargers. What are we doing at cornerback? What does the dead cap look like all of a sudden? What does the Chargers' money look like all of a sudden? There's a lot to get through in this video, so we're going to talk to a little bit about J.C. Jackson, kind of riff on this. Don't have a lot of time before having to head out for my day today, but this is something we definitely got to talk about. So before we do, guys, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, of course. I've been getting hit up a lot lately. That's a lot of guys jumping in on the Underdog Fantasy lifestyle. It's been a lot of fun out here, man. Definitely the best way to elevate your Sunday with the best fantasy platform on the web. Use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100. Get in on the action and get some special deals along the way. You newcomers are going to get some nice deals to throw on top of that. Now, before we get started, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time. You guys take the like, sub, bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action. Breaking news, the Chargers have traded J.C. Jackson back to the New England Patriots for peanuts, for nothing, for free, for nada. But yeah, that's okay, man. Honestly, like, we'll be talking a little bit about this in terms of, man, the Chargers really messed up. And yes, we do have our lickings to take. I think the coaching certainly has a lot to answer for with this transaction. The fans, although behind the decision, it was really the coaches and their ability to foresee the integration of a J.C. Jackson that really had to make sure that this worked, especially with the kind of financial commitment that the Chargers put behind this decision. It did not work, and a lot of us have to really sit here and eat some crow, even me. You know, like, holy cow, when it came to the offseason last year, first off, I didn't think we were going to get J.C. Jackson just because of the money restraints. Of course, we had the Justin Herbert contract at the time looming over us. I think we were fresh into a Derwin James contract extension as well, and then, of course, trading for Khalil Mack. There was a lot going on in terms of the offseason last year where I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to afford this, man. And when we signed him, my goodness, did the Chargers fandom world explode. The Bolt fam decided to, we all came up in arms like, oh my God, absolutely fantastic. We have a cornerback one. I was excited. Everybody was excited. And this just never really got off the ground. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I don't know if it's a personnel decision, if it's a coaching decision, if it's Tom Telesco, if it's whoever. That elective surgery that J.C. Jackson got prior to starting the season last year, I think really derailed this man. Now, of course, not everything is going to be like circumstantial, but and there's a lot that you got to put on the player J.C. Jackson as well. I do think that, you know, all the talent in the world, he's still got to go in there, put in the work, and get integrated in this particular system, particular team. But it doesn't really feel like we ever got to see that version of J.C. that a lot of us were excited about. J.C. Jackson, maybe perhaps rushed back after that recovery from surgery, did not live up to expectations. Probably, it's a lot of the points, a lot of Chargers fans, myself included in a lot of the times, feeling like he was a bit of a liability out there. Chargers, they need a corner that's a number one guy. They need a corner that can handle the business of a number one wide receiver. They need a corner that can be that guy with that identity, and it just was not J.C. Jackson this last couple of years. After going down with that tremendous injury later into the season last year, the Chargers and the fandom were all holding hope that he could overcome the impossible and come back from a pretty significant injury and make an impact early in the next season. And I feel like there were times where we did get to see that a little bit. J.C. Jackson did overcome a lot by coming back and playing in week 1, which is tremendous given his injury. And we did see in the last game before he got injured, and in a couple of moments in the few games that he did get to play for the Chargers this season, some upside. Be it there was enough to get this man benched at one point, the Chargers making J.C. Jackson a healthy scratch the last couple of weeks. Healthy scratch last week, and then the week or last week versus the Raiders, he was active but got no playing time. That was a huge indicator, by the way, that he was going to trade. I don't know how me or not any other, Chargers, YouTubers or content creators, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's like, hey, man, we might be trading JC. That's a huge indicator that a player is going to get moved. We saw a little bit of upside, but it never came to fruition. On top of that, the Chargers are a very culture-oriented team, and I don't know how many of you guys saw this. We talked a little bit about it as to maybe why J.C. Jackson was scratched that one week. There was a warrant out for this man's arrest. I forget what the case was. It may have been a speeding ticket. It may have been something minor, but his inability to take care of it required him, I think, to go back to New England, get things handled. It's just not something that fits with the Chargers culture. Supposedly there were things going on behind the scenes that were making the relationship a little unstable as well. I heard that there was a similar situation with Jerry Tillery last season as well, former first-round pick of the Chargers, now wanted man after a dirty hit on Justin Herbert last week versus the Raiders. That's a huge part of this Chargers team. Relationships, moral obligations of, upstanding Chargers players, bringing that image to the team. That's something that, as long as I've been a Chargers fan, has been a staple. Yeah, if there's one thing, I'm sorry Chargers fans are going to hate me for saying this, if there's one thing in the Tom Telesco era, maybe even the Dean Spanos, ownership or whatever, it's that the Chargers are a morally good team. We're a good team. We're the good guys in this narrative. The Raiders are the big bads. We're the good guys. And that's something I've always kind of appreciated. Maybe part of why I was drawn to this team in the first place. Okay? When you see something like this happening behind the scenes, as a Chargers fan, you automatically have to assume you're at risk of losing your spot, number one. And if something else continues, you're at risk of getting booted off the team. Was this one of those things where I think, J.C. Jackson needs to be cut because of a unhandled, parking ticket or speeding ticket or whatever, unhandled warrant or whatever? No, I don't think it warrants that. But I think it just kind of added to the weight that was starting to crash down on J.C. Jackson as to maybe he wasn't a fit here after all. And again, I don't judge this man for a warrant, right? I've had unpaid parking tickets or speeding tickets that have gotten me in trouble before. I think to a point where, I probably could have gotten arrested. But it's just life. It's just life, right? And I don't hold that against J.C. Jackson, the person, at all. But maybe it was enough for the Chargers to say, hey, man, this is your job, right? This is a job. This is a multi-million-dollar opportunity, and part of that is a moral obligation to create this image for yourself, to create this example for your peers and your example for your fan base, et cetera, that was just not being lived up to. That's a different story. But I don't judge JC the person for this. But that was another indicator right there. A big thing that we need to talk to about is the contract. Before we do that, just to kind of wrap a bow on this, the Chargers, not even a bow, but a big thing that people are asking me, because we're kind of riffing on this one, was this a good deal for the Chargers? A lot of Chargers fans may be a little bit upset that we didn't get more out of this in terms of a trade. Dudes, I need to be perfectly clear on this, okay? This is a good thing. I know a lot of people are like, oh man, we're bummed out. We don't have our corner one anymore. The idea of our corner one, we have to move on from that concept. Chargers need to start from scratch at corner, which we definitely need to talk about that a little bit as well. But this in the end was a very, very good thing for the team, a very, very good thing for J.C. Jackson, and a very, very good thing for our money situation going forward. I think this is one of those rare instances where this is a win all around. Win. The Patriots just lost Christian Gonzalez. Dallas, right? They're number one corner. I think Jonathan Jones is sidelined too, right? So they're down bad for corner. They know that JC works in their system. They know that in calling him that they can get that defense back on track in terms of their coverage, at least a little bit, hopefully, because there are some red flags in terms of JC's injury, et cetera, et cetera. But there's faith. There's faith that he would come back and he would do something for their team. That's good for JC. He's not going to be a scratch for that team, obviously. He's going to get some playing time. He's going to be able to live through that contract, which now is adopted by the New England Patriots. Okay, this is where it's a win for the Chargers. Okay, take a look at this. This was J.C. Jackson's contract with the Chargers prior to this trade. Okay, 2022 got paid $8 million. 2023, so on the left side, or I should say in the middle, you're going to see the dead money, and on the right side, you're going to see the potential savings. Okay, on the far left side, you're going to see that number of cap against the Chargers each season, which is pretty significant. Okay, $17 million in dead money this year. That's a lot. Okay, and then an average of about what, $19-20 million every season after that. That is a lot of money, and that is a big reason why when a lot of Chargers fans, after the second stumble in the second season with the Chargers, where he got the healthy scratch, a lot of people like, we got to trade him, we got to move him, we got to move on from the J.C. Jackson disaster. I felt like there's no way any team in the NFL is going to want to adopt this contract for a guy who's hurt, a guy who's a healthy scratch, a guy that the Chargers feel might be a liability at this point, a guy that might actually have, some problems and complications behind the scene. There absolutely is no way the team's is gonna adopt that. And lo and behold, from unfortunate circumstances for the Patriots, an opportunity opened up when rookie sensation corner Christian Gonzalez goes down. And then the Patriots pick up the phone. Maybe it was Tom. If it was Tom, good for you, man. If it was Tom, if it wasn't, whatever. Good job for Tom Telesco making this happen. This is why this is a win for the Chargers. Now, I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but I think I got a good idea of what's going on here. As far as I heard, I think it was Daniel Popper that said, I think we're freeing up around $7 million this year with this trade, but we are acquiring a pretty large dead cap next season. After that, we are off the hook for the 2025 and 2026 seasons, which would have been a $40 million commitment, y'all. Got to remember that. Chargers, we just saved a whole lot of money. Okay? So this season, I think the Chargers still on the hook. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at this contract right here. Okay, the Chargers still on the hook for a significant amount of dead cap, right? But not as much as next season. Next season it's going to be something like, dudes, I think $20 million, something. I think 18, almost $19 million. What the Chargers got to pay in dead cap next season. There may have been something down here. Yes, there was. Okay, so this season, $11 million dead cap, which is a lot, but it does free up $7 million for the Chargers this season. Next year, it's almost $19 million that the Chargers are going to have to pony up in order to get that J.C. Jackson contract off the books. A lot of people are going to say, man, that sucks. But you know what? In the end, this is a big win for the Chargers. This is a big win for Chargers fans, for J.C. Jackson. $18 million is a small price to pay when considering going forward, we're not going to have to pony up the other $40 million that was owed to JC. Because if you take a look at the way this contract was structured before, it wasn't very friendly in terms of cuts, this early. Not at all. There's an out kind of terminology used when talking about the way you structure an NFL contract. The Chargers didn't really have one. I would say maybe until like 2024, 2025, where you're like, we're $10 million in dead cap, but we'll save, the $30 million-ish at that point. To get out of it this soon in year two, while acquiring the dead cap they did, which is definitely going to hurt a little bit, but it really in the end is a good thing for this team. The Chargers, in my opinion, we got lucky with this one. We did. It was a disaster in the end. Did not fit with the team, did not fit with the Chargers, but financially, this was probably the best outcome we could have hoped for. What if, guys? What if? And of course, there's a big possibility, and I would say more likely than not, JC's going to go back to New England. He's going to have a fantastic continuation of his career. He'll be fine. I think Bill Belichick knows exactly what he's doing, and that's, you're just going back to where he fit, where he was born to be a good player. Okay, I think JC, the player, is going to be fine. There's a good possibility of that. Don't feel too bad about that, Chargers, because what if there very much so is also a very real possibility that JC Jackson stayed with the Chargers, was burning $40 million over the course of the next 2 seasons, 3 seasons, more than that actually, because I keep forgetting that we would have to pay him for 24 as well. So you're looking at, $60 million ish, right? $60 million, while having a guy that you don't even feel confident about putting out there on the field because he's been a liability. The Chargers are 2-0 without JC right now. Whether that's his fault, I don't know. Whether he got a fair shot in terms of playing, past that injury, whether he got a fair shot where he was rushed back, whether he got a fair shot where he was thrown against, Tyreek Hill of all players in week 1 and going up against some of the best, and then Jay Jettas, in a couple of weeks, actually I think he was a scratch for that. Either way, it was very, 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 very difficult for JC Jackson to do what he did, to face up against some of the best receivers in the NFL, and to do so soon after an injury. I don't know, it was all working against JC Jackson. In the end, it just wasn't a good fit. Where does that put the Chargers financially after this? I don't know if they've put this in the books quite yet. J.C. Jackson, is that cap still accurate? I think so, right? I think that's with all the dead, right? I don't know. We have to take a look at the updated numbers going forward. Either way, 2024, here's the dead cap right here. They're putting it here on over the cap at $20 million. That sounds about right to me. It should give the Chargers, in terms of space next season, though, around the same of what we were expecting. So when it comes to the Chargers maybe needing to part ways with the Mike Williams, which is something that we were thinking about, with a Khalil Mack, which is always something that we've been talking about in order to get this dead cap or this overage off the books a little bit. Yes, that's still a possibility, but this really helps you past that, because guys, look at this contract for Justin Herbert coming up. Okay, getting JC Jackson off the books, $20 million a season for the next few years, going in. It was what, until 2026, right? Yeah, until 2026. Justin Herbert's contract is going to go pretty far into the future. Now we have an extra $20 million in 2025 and 2026 to put towards that contract, and Justin Herbert, man, it's going to help us keep this team healthy past that point. So as soon as Justin Herbert's contract starts getting a little stiff, right, a little steep, then we're going to start seeing some of the relief in letting go of JC Jackson kick in. Does that make sense? That's definitely going to help this team out. And by that time, the Chargers may have signed more free agents and spent that money or whatever. Still pretty close, against the cap. That's how it's going to work. But I'm telling you right now, moving on from JC and getting that $40 million back, it's a big move. It's a big move, and it's going to help. It's going to help. So J.C. Jackson, an unfortunate disaster for the Chargers, I think, in a lot of different ways. From our point of view, from his point of view, not getting to play, the circumstances behind the injury and going up against stiff, competition, et cetera, et cetera. It's tough. It's tough. But ultimately, I think parting ways is going to be a good thing for him, a good thing for us. And in the end, as much of a mess that was created by Tom Telesco and Brandon Staley, it was a decent job at minimalizing the bad that came out of it, right? Minimalizing the consequences as much as possible. So we can all kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Chargers feeling pretty good in terms of, the money situation and how that all turned out. It could have been better. We could have avoided this as a whole, but who could have seen this coming? Nobody. I was excited. You were excited. You who's watching, I know you're watching, say, man, I was excited about JC. I ain't going to pretend like we weren't excited. We were all excited about JC. It's just an unfortunate thing that it did not work out. Okay. Now, in terms of the Chargers roster right now and who's stepping into these roles, we do have a bit of a concern at corner all of a sudden. I think Dean Leonard is still battling injury. He would instantly become our best depth guy at cornerback. Our starters all of a sudden, Asante Samuel Jr., Michael Davis, and Jasir Taylor, who Taylor's been a fantastic nickel guy. I think we can continue seeing that from him. But Michael Davis has been struggling, and I think this is the last year of his contract. I don't know if the Chargers bring him back. Asante Samuel, I think this is the last year of his rookie deal. I do expect the Chargers to try and bring him back. Either way, corner all of a sudden became a very huge focal point of this team, and it's something that the Chargers need to start addressing right away. And I would say even for this season, because there's some options out there. Okay, we're gonna move on from this picture too. The biggest thing I wanted to say to close out J.C. Jackson, he was supposed to be the Jalen Ramsey for us. That didn't work out. All I'm going to say, Chargers, is going forward, if you want a Jalen Ramsey type guy, and you have a shot at Jalen Ramsey and J.C. Jackson, because it turns out Jalen Ramsey was available, right? Go after Jalen, right? I know he got hurt this season. That sucks. Maybe he doesn't get hurt with us. Who cares? But don't go for the guy that's like the guy that you want, right? If there's an opportunity to get the guy that works for you, go get him. I was so excited for the opportunity, maybe the thought of J.C. Jackson or Derwin James and Jalen Ramsey getting to play together. That didn't happen. I was really wishing that would happen. Okay. So in terms of options for the Chargers, and what they need to do this season, there's a couple of different things going on, okay? Chargers need some depth, and they need a guy that they can step into that role. I would say mainly on the outside, because they like what Jasir Taylor and Asante Samuel can offer from the slot, I do believe. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult finding a guy this late, but there are some options out there, okay? So, I mean, there's a list you guys can take a look at. I kind of picked a couple of guys that I think were maybe a bit of a fit. Some of them more on the outside, some of them more on the inside. That could free up Asante to play outside exclusively. There are options in picking up different players to do different things in different, you know, configurations. The first guy I think I really like, that I didn't know was an available free agent. Did he suck last year, Browns fans? I don't know, dude. I felt like Greedy Williams has been a really good corner. Maybe I haven't been paying enough attention to the Cleveland Browns, but he's out there as a free agent. He's 26 years old. He's 6'1", 6'2", big corner, very fast. I feel like if anything, he offers that like Michael Davis of last year's upside. Like, I like Greedy Williams. I would say like number one, that's probably my guy I want to go after, right? Because he can play that outside role. And he provide very good, solid depth, and he's a young guy. So if there's some upside to be found, maybe we can extend him for next year, help that situation out a little bit. Greedy would be cool. Then we got some like familiar faces, man, that I think the Chargers should definitely consider. Because of the familiarity, maybe not with the system so much anymore for some of these guys, but just with the organization, we know what we're getting in these guys, especially if they're coming in more as depth options, rotation kind of dudes. Casey Hayward, beloved Charger, you know, free agent pickup from the Packers so many years ago. Dude's old. A lot of these guys are going to be like 33, 34. They're old, right? But they're coming in to do one job, and that's kind of step in relief of this situation for this one season. I think we can all look past that. We're not looking for them to be what they were. We're just looking for them to be a solid backup at this point. I think you can say that about all these guys. Casey Hayward, he can play outside, he can play inside. He fits for what I think we need. He's a free agent out there. Let's reunite with some of these guys, just like the Patriots. Let's go grab a guy that we know and put him into a role where we're like, we feel good about giving them these responsibilities. Another guy, man, Chris Harris. I think he had a brief stint with the Saints last year. With the Saints last year. He was a pretty decent nickel guy. Sure, he fell off hard before the Chargers let him go. He went to the Saints. I think he did okay with the Saints as far as I was hearing. Another older guy that we could probably say, hey man, if we need more help in this nickel position, where the Chargers really they use a lot of resources around that position, revolving around the position. Maybe Chris Harris, right? Bryce Callahan's probably my number one guy that the Chargers need to get on the phone right now. So familiar that he played with us last season. He was really good, actually. I don't know why he's a free agent right now. He was definitely above decent in his late years of his career. I think Bryce Callahan's the number one guy that we got to go out there and call right away. And they're all scheme familiar. Okay, so that's where I'm thinking as far as cornerback. Chargers need to start throwing some resources at that right away. But the biggest thing that I want to kind of shove in front of your guys' noses real quick before we close out this video, because this is pretty significant. The Chargers, and from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of talk behind the scenes that the Chargers really want to add another receiver, which is cool. It's exciting. I don't know if I agree with it. I want to, as much as it pains for me to say it, because a lot of people maybe have lost faith in the whole idea of it so early. I haven't. We drafted a first-round wide receiver. I want to push Quentin Johnston into this role. I don't see a reason to have to go get a wide receiver quite yet. But the team, for whatever reason, feels like, from what I'm hearing, again, take it with a grain of salt, feels like they need to go get a guy. And we've heard rumors that, and maybe even confirmed rumors by this point, that the Chargers have been in talks with the Bears to go get Chase Claypool. As far as I heard, the trade talks didn't get very far, but this could be a move, and maybe this is a reason why it happened so quickly, because the Chargers might need money to go get a receiver right now. Sure, we're eating $18 million in dead cap next season, but we did free up $7 million this year. right? And the Chargers, can we go back to over the cap real quick? What's our situation like now in 2023? Chargers now $11 million in cap space, right? With that move, we could definitely go pick up a smaller contract like a Chase Claypool if we had to. I don't know what his contract looks like with the Bears. I know it's not that big. There's serious talks. There's serious conversations from what I'm hearing that the Chargers are going after a receiver, whether it's Chase Claypool or not. I think Chase Claypool is the most likely outcome here. Do I want him? I'll tell you guys that if we sign him, I'll be excited because I think Chase's upside from what we saw with the Pittsburgh Steelers, it is a little reminiscent of Mike Williams. Like, I can see why they want to do this because you can still kind of have play like that. Nowhere near Mike Williams' level, but it's kind of, what he's offering. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I still want Quentin Johnston to be that guy, and they have a bye week to kind of see if they can, if they feel that way about Quentin Johnston as well. Okay, but that could have been a big reason why the Chargers moved off of JC so quickly. Big reason why they put him on the shelf. Why we wanted to trade him all along. Now we're looking for a receiver. Are we going to see some movement this season? I think so. I think the Chargers, from what I'm hearing, it's very uncharacteristic for the Chargers to go out there and trade for a guy in the middle of a season or pick up a free agent. I feel like it's going to happen this season. I think that move in terms of a trade is telling of that. And I think the Chargers need it, both in terms of depth on corner. I don't know if they need wide receiver as much as they think, but if they think so, then that could be a move that they make. Either way, all of this ties a bow on the unspectacular, anticlimactic end of J.C. Jackson's stint with the Los Angeles Chargers. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment section below of this whole situation. Mistakes happen. Signings like this happen every once in a while. Unfortunately for the Chargers, it just wasn't a marriage that worked in terms of system fit, in terms of relationship, all that kind of stuff. It makes that episode of All In where he was really, really praising everything that J.C. was bringing to the team. Makes it a little bit laughable at this point, but it is what it is. And we can all at least start moving on from the situation. If anything, Chargers fans, we're moving on from the J.C. Jackson situation. Let's look at something fresh to help the team going forward. Well, guys, if you thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out, and hit us up in the comment section below what you think of this whole thing. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll catch you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Good luck to J.C. Jackson too, by the way, man. Just because he had a rough time here doesn't mean we wish him no success with the England Patriots. Hopefully he has a bounce back for himself this year too.